Today, I'm going to be replacing the four-wheel drive linkage on my Jeep because it popped out of place. So on the four-wheel drive linkage, you have the transmission mount, and there's this little bracket that comes off, and you have a mount in the body pan, and then there's an access point that it pivots, and then that's what allows the transfer case to be pulled in and out of four low and the two-wheel drive and everything else. Well, unfortunately, that bracket right there on the pan that connects the transmission, it fails, and then it pops out of place, and then you have a dead stick and you can't go into four, you can't come out of four. So I had to go underneath there last time we went off-roading in Missouri, and I had to do it manually and cut everything, and I had to push my transfer case back in. So I got online and I ordered this kit right here. This is a cable shift kit. They have a couple different brands on Amazon you can buy. I forget the brand of this one, but it's the actual name brand one. It was like $180 or whatever. So it just comes in a box. Everything's pretty much already connected how it needs to be. And then you have your hardware kit with your new hardware, because you're going to have to take the belly pan bracket off, and then those bolts are not going to be reusable, so you get new bolts for it and everything else. So this piece right here goes on the belly pan side. This piece right here goes on the transmission side. So the bracket that holds the transmission, well, it holds the shifter, this replaces that. And it, instead of having that fork that comes off that holds that pin, you get this. So whenever you go to shift, this cable that runs through here, whenever you pull on your shifter, it allows it to pull through the sleeve right here and engage and disengage your transfer case. Now, what's cool about this is because it loops back like this. The problem is whenever you're off-roading with a lifted Jeep and you start articulating and flexing, your body starts twisting from your frame. The original linkage, it gets pulled real hard. It's fixed. So you have a fixed point, a fixed point, a fixed point, and whenever your body starts to move, it will pull that out of place and it'll pop out the bracket and you'll lose it. This right here doesn't, because whenever this is in place, this can flex and move. So that way you never have that issue again about it being twisting and then there being a lot of pressure than it popping out. I don't know why Jeep didn't come up with this out the gate, but I know that they fixed this issue with the newer vehicles. But the TJ is just one of those things that it was a great year model. It was a great model for Jeep, but it had its flaws. And then you have to go aftermarket to fix those flaws, because if you go back with OEM, you're going to be redoing the same thing over and over and over again when you go off-roading. Doesn't matter how many times you fix it, it's just going to end up doing the same thing. So this is a permanent fix to that solution. So we're going to go ahead and pull the old linkage off today, and we're going to put this on there. And hopefully it doesn't take too long. And I know a lot of times you have to, a lot of people will remove the transfer case and transmission skid plate to have more access. I'm going to try to avoid doing that to see if I can get in there without having to replace or remove the transmission skid pan. And if I end up having to do it, I have to do it. It is what it is. But let's see if I can do it without it, and that way it can cut time down on the install. So, okay, let's get started. Okay, so you have to get under your carpet. You recording? Yeah. Okay, so you have to get under your carpet, and you see those bolts. Well, those go through the belly pan, and they're supposed to have this spring washer type grommet that's almost like a flag nut, where it's supposed to jam them in place so you can tighten them from inside. You don't have to have a new one under the vehicle. But a lot of times they get weak, or they fail, or they don't work correctly. So someone has to go underneath there to hold them so you could get these removed. But we're going to try to remove them with the impact, and hopefully this right here is enough to take them off without having to go underneath there. So we're going to find out real quick. I'm going to go underneath there and hold them. So this is what I'm talking about under here. If you guys can see this, I'm going to have to grab this with the channel locks while he hits it with the impact. Ready? Yep. Hold on. All right. Okay. All right, so basically you see how we just did that. I'm going to put the phone down so I can actually get underneath there, because I need both my hands for this. But that's the gist of what I'm talking about. These little tabs right here, they're supposed to catch, but they don't. They just free spins. And then this right here just
won't ever come off. So unfortunately for something like this, if you're alone, you're gonna have to grind or drill out the bolt head so they'll fall out from the bottom. If not, you're gonna have to get a pair of vice grips and clamp onto it with a pair of vice grips and jam the vice grips against something, and then you could go inside with the impact and you could bang that with the impact. Okay, so you see the wrench right there? That's the bracket. This is all the room you have to play. I got the bottom bolts off first. You come up from the bottom of the skid plate, there's an access hole, and then you can get to it from an access hole with a long ratchet, and you could break this one loose just fine, and then you can ratchet through. And then this one right here, I had to put a wrench on there. Luckily, it was in a position where I could get it, and I had just enough leverage where I could actually get it broken loose without taking the skid plate off. So far, without having to take the skid plate off, we've been successful. But now the biggest issue is going to be, can we get this bracket off, this grommet right here off, if we could get this one off after we get this bracket. So I'm hoping after this bracket comes off, I can wiggle that one out of that grommet, because man, this Jeep's a 2003, so 20-year-old Jeep, and these grommets are, they're amazing still, man, for 20 years old. But this linkage system just was never a good design for rock crawling. I mean, I'm not saying it was a bad design for what the original purpose was, but for what we do with it, this is a very, very bad design. Okay, so now let me see if I can somehow manage to use this to leverage that off. So I'm not going to record this part, guys. You're just going to have to pry and finagle it. If I have to get my, I got, you know, those little plastic grommets on vehicles, on the fenders and the liners you use to pop off. I might have to get one of those tools and use that. So I'll let y'all know how I got it off when I get it off. This is the tool I'm talking about, guys. It's for popping these little plastic fasteners on, but it also works amazing for stuff like this. This made really quick work of this. I mean, literally, it took me like all of like 5 seconds. I just had to jam this up in there and get it wedged and pull the camera over. Yeah, so all I did was just get it wedged up in there, started prying, and off it popped. So this little tool right here, you can get a pack at Harbor Freight for I think like less than 20 bucks, and it comes with a multiple set, and they are absolute time savers when it comes to stuff like this. And that is it for the linkage. There's the rest of the linkage there. So now we can start installing the new linkage. This has taken us a total of maybe 15 minutes so far to get everything out. So now we're going to start putting it back in. On the transfer case side, up here, this is the, if we focus, this is your shift linkage. And then this right here is your transfer case side. On the transfer case side, you're going to have to take the little lever off that the factory put on there. And this is going to be replaced with a new one that's the appropriate size for the new linkage. So it's a 9/16 bolt. So you're just going to remove this one. It's directional and slotted. So when you get this one off, you just put the new one on in this place. Okay, once that comes loose, just take the nut off. Again, this is on the transfer case right here. So just pull this off and pay attention to the orientation that it is. Right now it's down. So I'm about to pop this off. It's a little jammed on there, so let me, it's kind of hard to do this with one hand. All right, got to put the phone down. All right, just simply took a screwdriver, stuck it in between that gap, and barely even pried on it. And you see the gap now on there. Oh, there he goes. Okay, so it's slotted, so you can't mess it up. Okay, and then you get the new one, and just simply put it on its new home. It may not want to go on its new home because it's a little corroded. All right, gotta put the phone down and fight this thing. Okay, being able to have both hands makes a huge difference. Slid right on, and just take your nut, put your nut right back on place. And then we're going to tighten this down. This was not tight to begin with, so you do not need to over tighten it. If you want to over tighten it, by all means, go ahead. But typically, if something is easy on, easy off. This is a 1/4 inch ratchet, just so y'all can tell how little bit of pressure it took to actually get this thing off. It wasn't a whole lot of force. Oh, torque just bent. There we go. Okay, to get the grommet out of this up here on the belly pan for your linkage, what I did was I took a pair of angled needle nose pliers and I pinched the lip of it, and then I just twisted it and then forced it back through the hole. So like I said, I pinched the lip of it and then I just angled it and forced it back into the hole, and that's how I got it out. But what I did before I did that, I don't know if it helped or not, was I took a razor. And let me see if I can show y'all. So I took this razor and I stuck it in here. Right, I just stuck it in there like this, and I just pushed on it until I felt it cut through the grommet. And I tried to do it in a couple different spots. And then I took those angled needle nose and I grabbed it and I just pinched it and pushed it back through. And that's how I got that out. That seemed to be the easiest way for me to get it out. I struggled with this for probably about like 10 minutes trying to figure it out until I just did that. And hopefully this tips helps somebody else out there struggling with it. Okay, so here's the body pan right here. We got the bolts in. Again, if you have someone to help you with this, it's a lot easier than trying to fight it yourself. And then the bracket for the transmission, you can see it just goes right where the old one came off. You just put your bolts back on there and you tighten them up, and then you have your loop back here. So your body pan, your transmission pan, and then your loop, and then that new grommet is going to go into the one up on the body pan, or on the shift linkage. And then the bottom one over here in the transfer case, this is going to get that pin. So let me get these bolts tightened up, and then whenever I get that done, I'll tune back in. Okay guys, the front of the vehicle's that way, the back of the vehicle's here. Transmission, belly pan. So tighten up this jam nut and get this one where it needs to be. Tighten it up nice. Put this bracket in here. Then once you put this bracket in, then you can put your transmission bracket in. And once you put your transmission bracket in, you leave this bolt loose until you get your bracket in. Then once you get your bracket in, then you can tighten this one up, because if not, the cable is going to be stiff. These allow the cable to rotate inside the bracket. So if these are tight, it's not going to be able to free spin and be where you need to be. So this is the more difficult one because you can't get a wrench on here. So get your body pan in first. We'll get these tightened up, put your body pan on, and then whip your cable down this way, leave this one loose, put your bracket on, and then tighten these up. Now from there, you can see that little piece in there. That little spring piece goes on to the end of the cable. You just thread it on, and then you lock the jam nut in. But before you do the jam nut, put it in 4 low or 2 high, whatever you prefer, and then put your transfer case in the same thing. Put that one in first, and then from there, you just pivot your fork, this one right here, pivot your fork, and thread it on here, and just thread it until this perfectly goes in. If it doesn't perfectly go in, you'll know because you have to fight it. And then if you fight it in, when you go to put it in 4 low or 2 high, you'll know because you're going to stop short. So you got to make sure that this goes all the way into 4 low and all the way into 2 high. So that way you're not in between 4 low and neutral. Because if not, you're not going to be able to engage it. So if you don't get this threaded perfectly, you're not going to push all the way into 4 low. So make sure this is threaded perfectly to get it into 4 low. But put this one in first up here. Put this one in first, and then adjust this one down here. So that way this one doesn't matter. You just get this one where it needs to be, and then you adjust the thread point on this to get that one in. And then once you get it in, tighten up your jam nuts, put your Carter pin in, and just double check everything and make sure it's good. Richard, go ahead and put it in 4 low. Okay, go ahead. So that's 4 high. There's neutral. There's 4 low. You hear that thud? I can't get the camera down in there, but the linkage itself should be pretty much all the way up against the transfer case. If there's any gap between the transfer case and that bracket, then you're not in 4 low. All right, go ahead and reverse it. Go to neutral. hear the thud, go to 4 high, hear the thud, go to 2, hear the thud. All right, now do it quick. Go back into 2. So if it doesn't thud, you're not in the gear. And like I said, this bracket needs to be all the way up against the transfer case. And if there's any gap between this rib and this bracket when you're in 4 low, you're not in 4 low.
Okay, so I know I didn't get to really record me doing it step by step, and I don't really do step by step videos or how-to videos. And even when I do work on vehicles, I normally could get a lot more footage of me working on it, but it was just so tight in there, man. You couldn't get the camera in there with my hands. But this job is doable without dropping the drive shaft and without dropping the transmission skid plate. So if you want to tackle it, it's easier to have a friend to help you with the belly band process. Everything else you will be able to do on your own. Like I said, a set of these right here, pop those grommets out, or the linkage. It's a time saver. It will save you a lot of time. The most difficult part is on the transmission, well, on the pull lever, that piece, you put your pin in, and then you have to put a nut, and then there's a little bitty like 10 mil nut on one side, and then it's a nylock on the other, and there's no room to get in there with both your hands comfortably on both sides of that drive shaft. It is a fight, because the drive shaft does make that very difficult to do that part, but it is doable. Just take a deep breath, gain your bearings, and just one ratchet at a time, and you'll get it in there. And this job, I did mostly all of it with a 1/4 inch ratchet and wrenches. So the only power tool that we used was the impact for the belly pan. It's pretty quick and straightforward. Probably what, 45 minutes is what we did total, maybe? 45 minutes to an hour. Let's see what time it is here. Yeah, just right under an hour is what it took to do this and stuff. And we went in blind. I've never done this type of linkage before and everything. And if I can do it going in blind in 45 minutes, I'm sure you guys can do it just as easy, if not more efficiently than what I was able to do. Just keep your patience on those little nuts and jam nuts, because I got pretty frustrated at one point with those. But all right, guys, that's it for the video. I hope this helps out, especially for people that are having trouble with their 4-wheel drive linkage. This is going to be a lifesaver out there on the trails and everything. I don't have to worry about it popping out and not being able to get back into 2-wheel drive. So, well, thanks for watching.